Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Daniel. We're in Daniel chapter 6, which contains the very familiar story of Daniel in the lion's den. Now we're now in the Persian era. The Persian Empire has come into control. Babylon has been swept away. But Daniel has been placed in a high administrative position in the Persian Empire as he was in the Babylonian Empire. And Daniel is so wonderful in his job performance that the king intends to promote him. Now, we saw yesterday that he was one of the top 3 administrative officials over the empire. But the king intends to promote him. Verse 3. Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. So, Daniel is about to be promoted to a place over everyone, aside from the king, of course. But there's jealousy among the other administrators, and they begin to plot against Daniel. They want to topple him. But how? There is no corruption in him. There's nothing wrong he ever does. And they know that. Notice what they says. Verses 4 and 5. They could find no corruption in him because he was so trustworthy. He was neither corrupt nor negligent. And finally, these men said, we will never find any basis for a charge against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God. See, the only way we can ever get anything on him, it has to do with his faithfulness to his God, the God of Israel. Wouldn't it be known to be like Daniel? To have such a character, the only thing people can charge us with is that we're faithful to the ways of God. That's Daniel. So they got to concoct some kind of basis for charging him on the basis of his faithfulness to God. They come up with a scheme. So the administrators go to the king and they say, verse 6, may King Darius live forever. We have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or any human being except your majesty during the next 30 days, that person should be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree, put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree in writing. So they came up with this scheme. They convinced Darius to issue a decree that for the next month, for the next 30 days, no one could pray to any god or any other idol or anything save the king. You know, a lot of times these ancient pagan rulers like to think of themselves as deity. And so they appeal to Darius's vanity and pride and arrogance. Say, issue a decree that everyone must pray only to you, for at least for the next 30 days. And if they refuse, let them be thrown into the lion's den. Darius fell for the plot. He did not realize they were scheming against Daniel. He just let this appeal to his arrogance win him over, and he issued the decree without thinking about it. They knew Daniel was so faithful to God, he would never follow the decree, and they were right. That's what it says in verse 10. Now, when Daniel learned about this decree that it had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees. He prayed. He gave thanks to God just as he had done before. Daniel's not about to change his faithfulness. He continues to pray at least 3 times every day. And he makes no secret of it. It's well known. So they had him, they thought. So the administrators go back to the king and say, did you not publish this decree that for 30 days no one could pray to anyone except you, or they would be thrown to the lion's den? Darius said, I did. The decree stands, he said, in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. And they said, O king, verse 13, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, he pays no attention to your majesty or to your decree. He is still praying 3 times a day. Now when the king heard this, he was distressed. He tried to save Daniel, but he could not think of any way, because the law of the Medes and the Persians, decrees issued by the king, could not be repealed. This group goes back to the king and says, remember, your majesty, that according to the law, no decree can be changed once issued by the king. So the king gave the order, And they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. And the king said, May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you. Now Darius did not want to execute Daniel. Matter of fact, he was upset. He tried to save him, but he was stuck on the horns of a dilemma. You know, you got to think that these people who came up with the scheme must have realized this is going to backfire on them. But they were so hateful toward Daniel, they were willing to take that chance, I guess. But anyway, the king goes ahead and issues the execution order. Daniel's to be thrown into the lion's den. But notice what he says on the night they throw him in. He's going to spend the night in the lion's den. Darius says, May your God, whom you serve, rescue you. Now, this story should be paralleled with the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego being thrown to the lion's den, being thrown to the fiery furnace in chapter 2. But notice, you remember in chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar, when he threw them in, he was outraged with them and said, No God can save you. But he saw God could. But Darius has a different opinion. He wants to save Daniel. He's not mad. He's upset. And he says, I hope and I pray that your God may be able to save you. That your God may be able to save you. And then he puts Daniel into the lion's den. It says he spent the night without eating or drinking because he was so afraid he was going to lose Daniel's service. And at the first light of dawn, he hurries back to the lion's den and he calls out, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve been able to save you? He's hopeful. Daniel, has your God been able to save you? And Daniel responds, verse 21, May the king live forever. My God sent his angel. He shut the mouth of the lions. They have not hurt me because I am innocent in your sight. I've never done any wrong to you, your majesty. God has saved me, your majesty. He sent his angel to protect me. You remember in chapter 2 when Nebuchadnezzar looked into the fiery furnace, he said there's a fourth man walking around in there. God has delivered his children. Daniel says the angel has come to save me. It may have been this is the angel of the Lord again. That is Jesus come to save Daniel. Very possibly is. God has saved his servant, and the king, it says, is overjoyed, and he lifts Daniel out of the lion's den. Again, just as in chapter 2, now also in chapter 6, we see God's power to save his children. He saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fiery furnace in chapter 2. And now in chapter 6, he saves Daniel from the lion's den. Join us tomorrow. We'll talk about the king's response, what he does after Daniel is rescued. We'll look at that tomorrow, though, in our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Daniel.